On today's episode, we are speaking with Monique Lindner. Lindner, German name, I got it. Perfect. And today we're going to be talking about leadership and specifically around the idea of building remote teams, which is a subject dear to my heart because I'm now 9 years into a fully remote business and have kind of gone through some of the ups and downs and things that you come across on that front. So, Monique, why don't you give us the little bit about you and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so I'm Monique, as you said. I help entrepreneurs and business owners to transform their work, to design their lives, and to live their legacies. That's the very short version. And I do so with basically everything from holistic high performance to lifestyle design, leadership, and everything in between.
Got it. So tell me, let's stay on that for a minute before we kind of go into the subject matter. Tell me about how you kind of merge and mesh these things together to create an outcome. That's a very interesting perspective on this.
Yeah. So I am in this field for 20 years. Basically, I started working when I was 13, out of necessity, right? But when I was 15, I was thrown into team leadership, which is really funny as a 15-year-old. Also, out of kind of necessity because they didn't have anyone else, which is really funny. But I learned, I'm from Germany, and I learned very much everything that I needed to learn about like leadership and about high performance from the people who did it wrong. And it's very interesting because you kind of want to learn the things that are being good and they're being great, right? But what happened is that I learned like I'm certified in so many different ways because that's what you need in Germany, right? You need certifications for everything. You need, so I went to university. I did two different university degrees. One of them is project events and process management. So I actually, what I teach, I have a university degree for that. And then I have leadership degrees from like huge corporations, like Siemens, for example. And everything that I learned, I didn't see being put in place in this world. So I was always like, there's this huge gap. So why are we not doing what we are supposed to be doing? And why is everything so toxic? So when I was 26, I left my home country out of frustration that everything is just about, time is money and you need to work more and harder and faster and stronger and better and this and that. And if you're not a manager, you're not worth it. And like all of these crap. And I left because I was like, okay, I have this career already as a 26-year-old climbing ladders, but I'm the most unfulfilled, unhappy, and burned out with a physical injury because of burnout. So I was like, I need to find something better. I need to see whale sharks. I need to go travel. And I was traveling already since I was 19. So I want to bring the life with like mindfulness, lifestyle design, and form of like how can you live a better life that actually fulfills you, and bring this into the business world because first of all, I know it's possible, but second of all, and I want to say, even though I do live in Thailand, you don't have to live in tropical places. It's very much possible to bring this back into the hustle and bustle of metropolis of New York City or whatever. I lived in Berlin and I did it there too. I lived in Sydney and I've done it there. I lived in Latin America, in Argentina, in big places, and I've done it there. But I just choose to take myself into the jungle because that's where I kind of belong. So
Yeah. Yep, I understand that. Yeah, my corporate burnout was around
mm,
28. So um, I definitely know the feeling and I definitely know the relief to step away from it, even if there are some big unknowns or it's, pretty scary to just venture out and start trying to make your own money. But, you know, best decision I ever made. And it sounds like it's a similar story
yeah.
for you. Yeah, very cool. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think that really answers the kind of how you piece these things together, and I think it's going to bring a really interesting perspective. So I guess to start, I mean, prior to COVID, the idea of this remote business, remote work was, it was kind of for us nomadic people. For me, it's been the past 9 years, but it certainly wasn't the norm, and it certainly wasn't typical. So, what have you seen? What have you seen? How have you best seen people make that transition? Whether it's I'm starting something new and I'm going to be building, fully online from the beginning, or maybe I've started in this other avenue where I had an office, we had more localization, and now I'm trying to open up my expand my horizons and maybe add that into the mix. Like, what guidance would you give people? How would you tell them to
Yeah.
think about that?
First of all, I want to say that I'm in the space since 2009. So I'm not new. I've lived in 9 different countries and implemented these types of works. And I have worked with big remote teams and like also uh, on location and remote teams mixed as well ever since, right? And it's very interesting. I had different business models I was working with and so on. And the the fact basically of working with remote teams and how this works hasn't really changed. We have just gotten way more tools and methods and basically support material, if you want to say, or anything, right? That we can now use in our tools, as like for example VPN connections and tools like this we're talking on this software right now works much better than it's been back in 2009, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we should be using this, but not overusing. A lot of entrepreneurs start to just throw a bunch of softwares on their team without a strategy behind it or without actually figuring out what do I want to do with it. So the first thing I would say is be very very clear on your core values. A lot of people say like, oh, my core value is like kindness and love and I don't know, transparency, and I'm like, that's really cute, but what about your business core values? They are often different from your personal core values, and they can overlap, but they don't necessarily are the same, right? And that's often the first thing I do with my clients when we're working together to bring this up and see, do an exercise, what are your core values, but then sit down with the whole team and have a conversation, because it's not like you bring these core values into the business and then putting them over the top of each one like a condom, I used to say, and it doesn't fit everyone, right? Like everyone is an individual, so you want to have a conversation. How does it look for you if this and this core value is being brought into in this business? We are from all, and then you want to look, okay, so we over the world. Like, let's just say you're a business owner from the UK. You cannot simply, just because your team is from all over the world, but you are from the UK, expect them to work like someone from the UK, right? You got to understand, where are people from? How do they grow up? What's their backgrounds? What are their beliefs? What are their work ethics? Just have a basic understanding, because it comes with communication. You tell someone, for example, from maybe a Thai background, since I'm in Thailand, right? Hey, so this is what I want you to do. Do you have any questions? A Thai person will never ask you a question, because we're having saving face mentality here. So if they would ask you something, they would basically admit they don't know something, and that would make them lose their face. That's a very simple example of work ethics and different understandings of easy communication, right?
Yeah. Now, do you have a anywhere that someone could go? Like, is there like some kind of online? Well, I'm sure there's some website that exists. It's like, here's what kind of working culture is like in different places. Do you have anything that you know of that someone could go and like reference for something like that?
Oh wow, I never, that's a really good one. I may have to
There you
start
go.
that.
There's your next digital
Thanks.
project.
Yeah. I talk a lot about it, but actually, you're right. Like, but there is, I forgot the name. There is actually someone who wrote a book about it. about cultural backgrounds, and work ethics in different countries. I believe it's a yellow one, and they're talking about cultural integration. It's a little older already, but I may be able to find
Yeah,
the name for
I'll
you.
look it up and yeah,
Yeah,
I'll look it up and throw it in the show notes,
yeah.
and then maybe by the time we broadcast, you'll have your website set up with all the answers anyway. But okay, cool. So that, yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and I think, coming from now working with people in Mexico, and like, so traditionally I was working with, pretty much always Canada, sometimes the US. And as I've started to engage with people in Mexico, yeah, it is really, really, really different.
Mhm.
And even just the mentality, like I can tell you from living in one place to another, like in Canada and the US, it's such a hustler grind, like never stop, keep pushing forward, keep growing. And then, what I've experienced in other cultures is like, yeah, we get the job done, and then like then we're done. Then I don't care anymore. Like I'm gonna go enjoy myself, relax, go into the ocean, whatever the case may be. So even just mindset around what work means is really different from place to place. That's a great
Yeah.
point.
And so, going one further basically is a lot of people believe that just because you hire someone, they owe you to want to build the same dream that you want to build, but they don't. You're not entitled to have them have the same ambitions and drive and everything, but it's a very common mindset under entrepreneurs. Since they're so driven, they believe everyone needs to leave their lives at the door for them and want to have to grind. And I was a freelancer. I had my own business when I was a teenager, hustle it out. But it's not like, it's a very different mindset to be an employee. And I was on every different position. I was an employee. I had actually different businesses before, right? And it's a very different mindset. And it's also a different mindset to be a freelancer and to be a business owner and to be an entrepreneur, right? So, to make these shifts in between, and to understand that your employees don't have to have this drive, and to let them be just amazing at what they do, and then, go home, go to the ocean, go have their family lives. And you often get out much more out of that than if they would hustle themselves to burn out or whatever, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, now there's obviously some resources where you can kind of look up and see what the culture is like. But you were kind of saying before, and I'm assuming that this kind of carries into this is, are you recommending that leaders have conversations with people? How, what do you want out of this? Like, I mean, is that a dialogue that you recommend kind of at the beginning of engagement?
Regularly. So what I recommend is, first of all, be very, very transparent. What do you want, people? And what do people want out of you? There will be people coming to you and maybe say, look, I actually just want to work for the money. And if that's something you don't want, you need to be very clear and be like, I don't want people like that, and don't hire them, right? And you want to hire people that I want to say, as an entrepreneur, you should hire people only that you would be best friends with too, or at least friends with. You can imagine to hang out with in your free time, right? Because you do spend a lot of time with them, even if it's online, right? And you gotta have to imagine to spend at least 5 years with them, because it doesn't make sense to build a team if you keep rotating and if people keep dropping out. It's gonna hold you back a lot. It's gonna keep um, draining your resources, your energy, your time, your money, like everything. But here's a thing that I keep telling people to do, is to have a scorecard, or however you want to call it, for their goals at work. So how do you want to progress in my business? And what do you want to achieve in your life that I can support you with as an entrepreneur? And the way that works is, maybe you're not supporting them in, for example, with money or with resources, but if you support them with like cheering them on, holding them accountable throughout the year, ask them, how's your fitness goal going? What? You lost 15 pounds? Oh my God, you go, like let's sit down and celebrate that and whatever. They're going to be much more connected to the business as well and feel so supported and personally engaged by like with being progressed in many different ways and not just because also if you're actually personally interested in what their lives is and what looking like and how they're progressing. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially in like the USA, in Canada, and some Western European countries, is a lot of countries like Mexico, like the Philippines, like Thailand, whatever, if you can, and that gets a little bit complicated, so you want to write it down. If you can, just do the little effort to remember family names, pet names, and just ask, not every day, like maybe once a week, once a month, whatever. Hey, how's your pet doing? I know they had a surgery, like the little leg got hurt. How's it doing? You don't have to have a 1 hour conversation, just a question. People want to be a part of a family. They don't just want to, you know, we are so disconnected all over the world, and working online is already pretty hard because you cannot chat with someone on the coffee machine anymore. You can't sit at lunch with people anymore. So you kind of already separated. But this connects people back into a more family kind of, thing that has been that place for them. If you can do that, you build a much more solid team that wants to be your championship team too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. All right. So I guess super quick follow up question is, have you found that the cultures that you referenced there are just because they're more family oriented and they're more focused on family as like a big priority in their life, that makes that difference for them? Yeah.
100%. It's really all about how you grow up because you're not leaving your identity at the door, right? Everything that you grew up with and that your cultural background is with, you're bringing it to work if you want it or not, right? I had a conversation yesterday with a new client and they're from the UK, and I told them basically, look, you gotta bring emotions to work. We're told we shouldn't. We're told we should control them and we should be so stern. That's BS because everyone has emotions. We are humaning, okay? And it's about handling them and be aware of them and not letting them take over. That's important, right? But we all have emotions and they are there and we feel them, and that makes us human, right? And if we're trying to tell people you shouldn't have emotions or like they're not welcome at work, whatever, they will build resentment. They will soon start to plot some gossip against you or whatever. So all you do is the opposite of what you're trying to do. And you cannot control people. You ain't gonna achieve that at any point, ever. So do it the other way around. Why don't you make them your friend by using emotions, right? Like a little storytelling we notice from marketing and whatever, it always works in your favor, right? So if you know someone is especially family oriented and maybe they miss their families, just ask them, hey, how's your granny doing? It was her 80th. Did you had a good party? It works wonders. So yeah, and if they have a really harsh relationship with their family or no at all, well then obviously don't ask them and the make the team their new family and just invite them and be like, "Hey, I'll be your uncle for today." you know?
Yeah. Great. So what else? What else do people need to know as they're kind of building? We've got some really great pieces to build on here so far. What have I not asked?
Mm.
What do we need to add to
So
that?
one of my favorite things is that a lot of people know the five love languages, right? And they do work in the work environment too, just the same way. So if you have learned about it, or if even if you haven't, let me try if I can get them together now. So it's like words of affirmation, it's gifts, if it's touch, it's
Quality
thank
time.
you, and acts of service. And so those five, obviously, they need to be translated into work environment. But if you can make this work and at the very beginning ask your team members how they love to feel rewarded and feel what's the word, appreciated,
Connected.
appreciated, yeah,
Mm.
you then you paid half of the rent. Basically, that's how we say it. You paid half of the rent for building a great team. Because here's the thing: most people don't leave jobs because of the job or a low pay. They leave it because of the leadership and because of the lack of appreciation. 70%, actually, around 70% it was. Like, there are studies out there, go Google it, I'm sure it's out there. So, if you can, first of all, be a better leader than most of the people out there, which is far easy, as there are not many good leaders out there, I have to say. So it's not that hard to be a better one than those people. And I don't mean superior, I'm just meaning like, what we talked about. If you implement that, you already make good points. And you appreciate your people genuinely, not pretending, genuinely. Then you already paid half of the rent, as we want to say it. So if you can ask them, because here's the thing: how else are you going to find out but asking people? Some people will say, I just like to be paid really well. And then, if you cannot do it immediately, you can tell them and you can say, but as we move on, I'm happy to pay you more. And sometimes they will say, I really love to have a really funky, fancy title because status is really important to me. Give them the fanciest title they can think of. I mean, what does it matter to you what the title is? You know, really not a lot. Like, if that makes them happy, give them a fancy title, and things like this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Um, is there any other pieces that you wanted to add, or any other tidbits or tips? I know we covered a lot, so I think we've done really really well
Thank
here
you.
today. I think we've helped shape. I think we've helped shape some new perspectives, because I think when you read a lot of books on leadership, a lot of what you're saying, I mean, it's kind of there, but it's not there. It's about having confidence, having structure, and those things are great. But what you said earlier really rang true to me, which is, we're so much more disconnected than we used to be, especially when people were separated from their families, not able to travel, not able to see their friends for so long. And I think, even though the main, I don't know where we're at in COVID, or what, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I still think people do have a reluctance to get on a plane and travel. People do have a reluctance to get into a big group. So that these things that we were used to, these community aspects, really haven't integrated fully back into people's lives yet. And I think, it's been very detrimental. So I think this is a really unique way to think about leadership, and there's some amazing
Yeah.
takeaways.
I have one more thing I think that would be really fun as well for people to integrate. A lot of people use Slack, and Slack is a great communication tool, but you can utilize it much better by integrating what is called add-ons. So there's a lot of add-ons. One of them, for example, is donut, like the donut you eat. And
Mm-hmm.
um, another one, I will have to look at the names, but you can just, like, there's a whole almost like a Play Store full of those add-ons. And they're specifically created for team building. So one of them is like a bot that checks in with each team member every day, and they can just answer different questions. And obviously you want to tell your team it's a bot, I'm not doing, but it helps them to still feel like um a little bit more connected, because that bot is obviously delivering the answers to you, and you can then go and be like, hey, Betty, you answer that your day started really shitty because like your dog just like destroyed whatever sofa of yours or whatever. Is there anything I can do with you? Because the thing is, like, you don't have to do the work necessarily of doing this mini conversations, and you can respond to it. So the outcome is a much more individualized and a much more human one, right? And I think that's where I want to come with the leadership part. Like, I call it leadership from within, because it's from your heart, but also just more human connection. We're not here to control or manage people. I absolutely am. What am I doing managing people? They're adults, right? We're all adults and unsupervised every day. It's already a world that is like, you know, it is what it is. But I'm not here to manage anyone or control anyone or change who they are, but I'm just trying to guide a path for all of us that makes sense. And if someone is not making sense anymore for themselves or for us or for what we're trying to do, it's fine. I don't have to be angry at them or mad or whatever. We can just, cross, like, leave the past or whatever. And it can be in a very human way. I can tell them, look, I think it's not going to work anymore. Do you want to take the next 2 months and look for a different job and whatever? And it can be all very human. We don't have to cut ourselves off all the time. We don't have to be toxic and harmful to each other. We can just be more kind. And kind doesn't mean people pleasing or nice or something like this. Kind can be very firm, right? But kind means giving ourselves grace and understand we are humans and knowing we're making mistakes, and yet taking accountability and responsibility for it. And so I just want to bring this back into the business world, because I have seen and also felt like I've been heavily bullied. I had to like go through so many different challenges, like harassment at work and everything. It's ridiculous. Like, why the heck are we doing this to ourselves and to each other when there are so many different better ways to do things? So that's where I come from with leadership, I think.
Perfect. I think that was the perfect mic drop moment. So that was great. I really, really appreciate you coming on. And I'll link up everywhere that people can find you in the show notes. But do you have a preferred method if someone wants to reach out?
On my website is everywhere where they can find it, and Facebook is the easiest and fastest way to just connect with me.
Awesome. We'll link all that up. And thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mike.